Hello, everybody. So today we're going to take some of the information that I've put out there for you in the last two videos, which was who wants to wake up whom and what is awakening. And we're going to put some practical application into seeing what those two questions really mean. I say it's two questions, but it's really the same question as two different ways. And when we look further afield, we can find out that Ramana Maharshi's famous who am I really, is the same question asked a different way. The Zen koan, what is the sound of two hands clapping? Or what is your original face? What was your face before your mother and father were born? All of these things actually have the same answer because none of these inquiries are actually looking for an answer. I mean, not a verbal type of answer. We're not looking for that. What we're looking for is inspiration. And in the original definition of the word inspiration, it meant a direct and sudden influence by divinity, from divinity. So if somebody, wow, whatever it was, that was considered to be inspiration, and it was considered to be inspiration from whatever is out there, so to speak. And that's what we're looking for here, is actually inspiration. We're going to do that by approaching this from a hands-on, demonstrative way of looking at this. So let's go back to the first one. Who wants to wake up whom? Well, who are you? And who is it that you want to wake up? You want to wake up you? Is that right? Well, how are you going to wake up you if you're not awake yourself? We never ask that, do we? We think we can make awakening happen, but trust me, prior to awakening, you have no idea of what awakening is. When it occurs, you will know it. And with any luck, there will be some duration to it, but there may not be if you don't pursue it, and most don't. But I hope that you will, and I hope you are doing so now. I noticed those last two videos, which were good, excellent inquiry questions, were not highly watched. So, it's about par for the course. We say that everybody says that they want what I have, so to speak, but they're not willing to do what I did. And I'm not even saying that you need to do what I did, because you don't. But you need to have the same willingness, the same attitude that was had then, that same openness, and you must have had the gift of desperation. In other words, if you are curious about enlightenment, this is not the teaching for you. If you'd kind of like to see what all the hubbub is about, this is not the teaching for you. It just isn't. If you are a dilettante, this is not the teaching for you. So just go on and find some other kind of teaching that will fit you. This teaching is about waking up, and it's not about anything else. Well, it's about clearing up, but that's the same thing, because clearing up is what? It's awake. It's being awake to this arising regardless of content. Yeah. It's I know who I am, even though the body may or may not be operating in tandem with that understanding. So who is it that wants to wake up? Have you ever really looked at that? Because when we say I want to wake up, my question is, who is the I in that? You say, well, me, but who is the me in that? I think you're making a false reference. Well, actually, I don't think you're making a false reference. I know for a fact that you were making a false reference. You are saying that just in the same way that people make a false reference when they come to me, and just before, as we go to an awakening session, as we move into that, Many of them will have already told me, so Fred, I understand that there is no Bob. I already know there is no Bob. So let's just cut to the chase. And what they don't understand is that the chase is the whole thing. There's not a, there is certainly can be something that feels like an event. And I guess it is an event to, well, how can it, whatever, I don't know what, I'm going to call it an event because I don't have a better word to call it. So there is the event of awakening, and then there is the process of awakening. And that's all we talk about here. You know, if you've lost your girlfriend, I'm not the guy to come to, because I'm not going to talk to you about that unless, you know, you're already a regular client and I know you're awake and you've had a tragedy in your life. Then I will talk to you about the mundane for as long as you want, because I enjoy it too. But this thing is precious, and I don't have any, and I don't do it. So I never know what's going to come out from here or for how long. I mean, what inspired this teaching could disappear tomorrow. It's kind of spooky, but it's true. I mean, it could, I could be left with just this unit, right? And the unit could be left with just the unit. And if so, then this teaching will collapse overnight, because I got nothing to say. But inspiration is another thing. So the what is awakening is the same thing as who is awakening, because what is awakening? Awakening is when the real one who is going to awaken does so. And the real one who is going to awaken is not the one that you've been trying to help, that you've been doing long and grinding practices for. Practice is unnecessary. Even Ramana Maharshi said that inquiry itself, he said that's the path if you need one, but all that's really needed is proper understanding. And that doesn't mean that I know there's no Bob, therefore I am enlightened. That's not that way at all. Because in that instance, the one who has come to see intellectually that there's no Bob is Bob. So that's not really very helpful. It may be satisfying, but you know, be open to doubt about that, because it's just not the same thing that we're after here. So the real one who's going to wake up, is that a Bob or a Mary? Is it a Fred? What I discovered after Fred having sought this thing, sought enlightenment or realization or awakening, well, I use different words for it, same thing. Well, kind of the same thing. And realization is the realization of the truth. Awakening is the process of realization, of further realization taking place. It's the process of the acceptance of what's been realized by the one who has realized, which was not a Fred Davis, and it's not going to be a Bob or a Mary. It just isn't. So there's something else here right now with us that's not a Fred or a Bob or a Mary. It's not. What if there was, and this is actually the question that I woke up to, which was, when everything else is gone, what's left? Well, what's left is the thing that's here that's not a Fred or a Bob or a Mary. I don't actually know what it is. I can give it a name, but that's not the same thing as knowing what it is, right? I don't actually, what's happened is I used to know a great deal about non-duality, and now I don't know squat. I'm not looking for answers anymore, so that makes it very helpful to not need any. But you may be looking for something, and this video can help you with it. In the absence of the personality over there, in the absence of the Bob or the Mary. So everything has gone away, meaning forget anything you can see, feel, hear, or touch. Anything that you can see, feel, hear, or touch is not it. Now, there is an arising of oneness. So we don't want to say this is not it, but we can say that it is not equal to it. There's only it. So we can't say that this is something other than it. Now, let me ask you this. Can we say that a Bob or a Mary is other than it? Well, we sort of can. Because it is what is. Bob, Mary, and Fred are all three what isn't. And what we focus all of our attention on in spirituality is what isn't. I swear to you. This is so simple. I've been waking up people for 10 years. And that's just a way of speaking. But I've been waking up people for 10 years. In other words, I'm not going to go around with the non-dual and all the false humility and all that. There's plenty of ego here. I know it's supposed to die, and mine did, but it didn't stay dead. That's the funny thing. That's the reason we have to have clearing, is that the death of the ego is quite a deal, but it'll be shorter than you think. I've not seen a case where it wasn't shorter than they thought, but there may have been some. I just haven't personally seen one. So, or that I can recall anyway. And I just think I would have recalled it because it would have been so unusual. In the absence of a Fred, let me do it with you. And you do this with me. Stop. If you're in the car, pull over. If you're doing something else and this video is in the background, stop doing what you're doing. Come over here. Sit down. Allow attention to absorb this video. It's that important. Back in my day, so to speak, there was that day when I came to see I came to the inspiration of what was left when everything goes away. Now, that includes all of this, everything we can see, feel, hear, or touch. It also includes the personality. It also includes the ego that appears to be to exist with that personality, appears to run it. It's just a way of succinctly describing patterns. Cut my fan on here. I get worked up and I'll be sweating here in a minute. God almighty, like a Baptist preacher, aren't I? So I was raised Baptist. I came by it honestly. In the absence of a Fred, and I promise you there is no Fred here. So let me tell you what I can find. I find that there is still knowing, or a sense of knowing. There is existence, or there at least is a sense of existence. That's how this conversation can take place, is because you, quote, exist and I, quote, exist. But when we say that, we better put the you in quotes and the I in quotes as well, because we have not yet discovered what it is that you are. What is knows what this is very well, very clearly, solidly. It does not come and go. Well, I mean, it can just vacate briefly, but it's not really worth addressing, other than to keep me humble enough to recognize that even awakeness can succumb to the most seductive thought. Even awakeness can succumb to the most seductive thought, and it regularly does. And it does so with people that I know to be realized. But I know them to be realized, but not right now. And that's the key. Because when I say realized, I don't really mean that person. I don't mean that unit. I don't mean the personality. I don't mean Bob or Mary is realized. Realization is coming to see that there's no Bob or Mary, and there's no Fred. So what I came to see on that day, and I come to see today, is that there is a sense of existence over here. There's a sense of knowing. There's a sense that there must be something that knows. There's a sense that there must be something that exists. But I can't prove it to you. There is something, the real thing we're after is not even consciousness, because that's the usual answer. Consciousness is all. It's true and skillful, but it's not completely true. Consciousness has a mama too. Consciousness comes and goes, doesn't it? Don't you sleep at night? What about the consciousness then? Can you remember anything deep dream to sleep? No. Can you remember anything when you've been knocked out? No. Can you remember anything when you have been knocked out via for surgery or something? No. Can you remember anything? Can you tell me your experience prior to the birth of that unit? No. Why is that? Because in order for experience to take place, there has to be witnessing. It doesn't have to be a witness, but there has to be witnessing. And I'm not saying that there isn't a witness. I'm just saying that all of that stuff is out of my league. I don't need to know all that. I know enough, which is nothing. I know who I am, so to speak, but I don't know what that is. But I notice that it's here, and when everything else is gone. If you were to just allow all of the stuff, all of the objects in your life to be gone, just for a minute, imagine that every object disappears. Do you really need the world? Do you need the world? The unit, the body, is for experiencing this world. And I want to tell you, it's for experiencing this virtual world. This is the virtual world. This is the avatar. There's something prior to the avatar and prior to the sense of existence. It's that which exists with deep dream to sleep, because, you know, if you think that you're awake while you're sleeping. That's just another word in my book for dreaming. It's for dreaming. You're having a lucid dream or something. I don't know. I don't have lucid dreams. I was never able to pull those off. But I know that there are people who report having them, and I know that there are people that report being awake even in sleep, and that some wonderful teachers have reported that. And I'm just going to suggest that what they reported is not what you heard. You took it as there is an I in this awakeness in this life, and that same I is there even when you're asleep. But what if there's nobody there? What if deep sleep or unconsciousness is actually the absence of experience? We talk about the void. We throw it about like we know what it means. We don't. You cannot know the void. What's trying to know the void is not the void, and an experience of the void is not the void, because because the void is the absence of experience. So we're talking about a representation of the void. When somebody tells you they have visited the void and it was like all darkness, or it was like stars, or whatever, but there was this amazing awareness, they're talking about something just after what I'm talking about. But here's the funny thing. We cannot know it. We cannot talk about it. We try here because there's nothing sweeter than trying. That's the reason we have satsang, is that it expands clarity. It does. It expands the unending expanse of clarity is, that unending whatever it is, that the sense of knowing something is expanded. But what isn't experiencing can't expand, because there's no experience, which means it's no thing. I hesitate to call it nothing, but I can certainly easily call it no thing. And when we talk about the void, I think we're talking about nothing in general language. We're talking about nothing, some kind of vacuum or whatever, some kind of space that never ends, and there's no more stars, no more this, that, and the other, but I'm still out there keeping score of something. All of that's wrong. And if your thinking is going along any of these lines, that's why you can't wake up. It really is. As I've told you many times before, the unit does not wake up. The character does not wake up. Fred Davis never woke up, and this unit never woke up. It looks like it because clarity is now using this apparent unit to function through. It's using this unit, this apparent unit, to function in the function of spreading this teaching to the other appearances here. Because we don't look alike, but we are the very same thing. When I say we don't look alike, I'm talking about relativity. I don't look like Betsy, thank God. But we are the very same thing, and we both know it. And that does things to a relationship. It really does. Our dog can sense, dogs can sense something beyond this human. I'm just sure they can. I can't prove it, but it certainly feels that way to me. And I guarantee you that I can sense something beyond the dogs. I can sense the same thing, because the dogs and I are the same thing, not within relativity, but within truth. It's awakeness that wakes up. And when I say awakeness, what do I mean? I mean this sense, present sense of existence. Now, if you say I am, that's well and good. It's a good jumping off or a good stopping place or whatever. That's fine. It's a good realization and it's very important. And with that, you will have the oneness experience. And I go for the oneness. I'm all big on the oneness experience because it's really about all I can teach. And I can't really teach that, but I make a living trying. But I don't make a living trying to describe that. I do that just because I can't not. I actually fought it early on in my teaching when this big trine began to expand. I didn't want to teach that because it was just so unteachable. And I could see that I had a nice organized little oneness teaching, all is one, everything's one, just this one thing going on. And then here came this other thing that I didn't know anything about. I still don't know anything about it. But it knows more. Something knows more than, it has to be it. There's nothing other than it. And see, I'm even confused. I can't say it because then it sounds like an object or a being or whatever. There's a sense of being. You will notice right now, there's a sense that you are being. When Eckhart talks about being, I thought he was talking about something that I needed to become or something that I would link up to or something that I would merge with. And I ran all around that teaching, right, for years without understanding what he was saying. And being is a verb. And the sense of being means that there is a sense of a verb, but I don't know, I cannot find who has it. I don't know that anyone does or anything does, but I do know that there is witnessing, but it's not the same witness that we experienced in pre-awakening or in early awakening, because that witness has got a location, it's over here. And the Fred story, the Fred movie was over there. And it was great because once I saw that it was a Fred movie and that I was watching it, that I wasn't a Fred, then that was great because I was the witness over here. But that's still identification with something over here. If you're identifying with anything, you're wrong. You never end up identifying with something. We end up identifying as something. Because I can tell you right now, there's no knowing the truth, but I am it. There's no knowing the truth, but you are it. I don't say you can be it as if something needs to happen so that you, I'm not saying you may be it or anything like that. I'm saying you are it. I am it. But see what naturally happens with a human being? I'm as guilty as anybody. Hand went right straight to the chest, didn't it? Well, you shouldn't identify with anything. I say while the body is busy identifying with itself. So I can't be talking to the body. I'm talking to myself. I am it and I am you with a capital Y. And you with a capital Y are me with a little m. Meaning that there's really no me over here. There's that sense of personality and that central thing that we think, it's just got to be in here somewhere. It's not in there. That center to all these patterns, it's just not in there. Who wants to wake up whom? If that unit's a seeker, you can bet it ain't because that unit made this decision. It's because that unit can't not be a seeker. It may be sick of being a seeker. I got sick of being a seeker. And I made up my mind to quit seeking any number of times and failed miserably, quickly. Because this unit was a seeking unit. And it was going to seek no matter what I did. What this little center that I thought existed, that I thought controlled the body, and actually, sort of controlled everything else too, but don't let that on that we think that, or that we thought that, right? I thought there was a Fred here, and I thought that Fred was not awake. I didn't even know what awake meant. What is awakening? Awakening is when the unit, pardon me, is when, well, let's just say the unit is bypassed. Because at least within relativity, there is a body here, but it has nothing to do with awakening other than the fact that this is the food of consciousness. If I get on the scale and I weigh 165 pounds, don't I wish I did, and I weigh 165 pounds like I used to 10 years ago. Now I weigh closer to 170, 175 if it's a good day. But when I get on there, what I'm really weighing is 175 pounds of food for consciousness. So we could say weight gain is a plus, but it doesn't actually increase the food for consciousness. This is actually the vehicle by which consciousness draws the energy that it is. And that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Here's an analogy. Imagine you are a vast ocean of wax, the surface of which would be melted. And imagine that there is a wick. And then imagine that, of course, that there's a flame, that it's already lit. Or let's have it not be lit. That there's a wick and there's a candle. That which you truly are is the candle, is the wax, the sea of wax, from which a wick spontaneously arises. Who knows why? Also, what spontaneously arises in not necessarily at the same time as that wick, because this may arrive without a wick, but it just be a boop. But when there's food to keep the flame going, when there's wood to keep the fire burning, then the fire will burn. And when it will burn and burn and burn, a candle, the wax, the wick, and the fire. The wax, the wick, and the fire. A fire will burn until the fuel is exhausted. Now imagine that this vast sea of wax is inexhaustible. It doesn't matter how much you burn from it. It is an inexhaustible source. It makes no sense, but it doesn't have to. It's just humans that want to think everything's supposed to make a certain sense to where humans can understand it all. It's not about humans. It's not about humans. Within the state of relativity, we count a lot. I don't want to say how important we really are to the overall flow of the universe, but I would say that we are important, namely because I am one in relativity. And I'm married to one in relativity. And I have two little dogs that are in relativity. But the dogs are food for consciousness. Betsy is food for consciousness. Fred is food for consciousness. There's really no Betsy, no Fred, and no Jack or no Willie. But there are appearances here. And we name these appearances so that we might experience But the problem is we want to know all about our experience. We want to know what this is, what our experience really is. We want to know why it's happening. We want to know what our purpose is, said the imaginary character. Which is what? It's awakeness confused, but not because awakeness is stupid. It is nothing but brilliance. But it's because it's just having a good time. That's the only thing I can figure out. I mean, it's playing with a game with itself, but it's a divine game. I mean, Krishna talked about it. It's a divine game, which is coming to know yourself. In other words, it's for this vast vat to actually, with that flame, there's a sense of experience. There is experience if there's flame, because if there's flame, there's relativity. Because flame, that flaming wick is the opposite of a non-flaming wick, which means we're obviously in relativity, because there's no opposite to you. Thus, you cannot be described. You cannot be taught. You cannot be told, but we try. I can see that I could do this video for about another 2 hours, but I think I'd lose some audience. I probably lost some now. But those of you who want to wake up, I'm glad you stuck around, because I hope you found something. I bet you did. Some of you who were not realized prior to this video are very likely realized now, or will be soon. See you, which means I will be awake through that unit, just as I am through this one, consciously awake. Yes, I am awakeness. The body is neither awake nor awake nor failing to be awake. There's only awakeness, and you are it. Bye for now. I love you. Thanks for your patience putting up with me.